reasons I wanted to bring you all together is throughout my life, people have been kind of going, what is it that you really do? And that got even trickier with a PhD, because for a lot of people, the experience of PhD is that there's a lot of coursework, teaching, and so full-time PhD means something actually quite different to what I'm doing. And so people were like, well, you know, are you still teaching? Are you still mentoring? Are you still doing these things? And so I was like, you know what? I want to take a few minutes, bring you together to connect those dots so that you as just exceptional transformation leaders in your worlds can leverage me and I can help you, but also so that you can advance my mission, which has become professionalizing change making to any extent that you're comfortable with. So where does it all start is, some of you know, growing up in the collapsing, imploding Soviet Union, and that is breadlines, that is inflation so high that twice we brought duffel bags of cash because a loaf of bread was costing 1,000,000 rubles a couple of times in my history, right? Just so that they could cut 6 to 7 zeros, right? And of course it's watching the despair, the need, the fear of having people's entire value system ripped from under their feet. So I actually remember exactly where I stood about 13 in Moscow going, I'm committing myself to figuring out how do we do change better, right? How do we do change in a way that protects human dignity rather than strips it away, that unlocks possibilities rather than kind of entrenches despair. I was then able and very fortunate to be able to leave my family, and now through the Russian war, I'm actually isolated from them in Moscow, but I left at 15 on my own, skipped a bit of high school to start college in the US early, and even my postgraduate research was looking at how do we transition post-Soviet bloc towards sustainability. Since then, 20 years, kind of working across 5 continents, moved countries 8 times. So I'm like, even on my personal level, I'm definitely no stranger to change and transformation. And having also launched now about 24 transformational ventures, learning a ton from that. And by the way, most of that work has been either through advocacy or clients, right? Some of your era, right? Like being able here to look at how we brought the team back after a pandemic that most of them hadn't even met. How do you invest and how do you cultivate accountability and sense of ownership? And then ULI, a number of you are here, like also having an opportunity to go, how do we change our model coming out of this disaster, right? Like what is our value proposition? What is our role in the industry? What does that mean for logistics and governance levels and committees and the strategic plan? But also working, with the Department of Education in Australia, as some of you know, to actually launch globally the living materials industry. I'm heading to Germany in September to actually help facilitate a big part of a leading conference in that, to go, well, how do we commercialize these ideas? Because I do this work in part because we've got ideas, we've even got proofs of concept. It's implementation where we're breaking down, right? It's taking that and scaling it and creating the transformation. And as a result, we're actually collectively doing really badly, right? Over 70% of transformational initiatives fail. And that's not just, oh, well, that's sad. And yes, it's a missed opportunity. And of course, the world desperately needs what it is that we're trying to create, but it's also people like us having our heads on the chopping block because we got the buy-in and then it didn't quite work out. It's capital that the next person may not be able to raise. It is people all around the world who I meet who are actually guilt-ridden for things that they weren't able to achieve, but they were never set up to achieve them in the first place. And so being quite fed up and passionate about all of that, that's when I started my PhD, to start taking these 20 years of practice and going, how do we distill what I'm calling the building blocks and formulas of transformation? So where I hope to get with my PhD is as close as possible to the equivalent of the periodic table of chemistry, but just imagine that for change, right? And of course my supervisors are like, it took a little longer than that. So I know that I will fall short of my ideal. But even if I can map out puzzle edges, right? Maybe not all of it, but just enough so that we can at least have a sense of what is it that it actually takes to create transformation, to get it right from the first go, to stop burning through people. Like Anthony, we have a few lead fellows here in the room, right? Like how many times have you all wished that there was something that level set you, that you didn't have to figure everything out for the first time. So that's what I'm hoping to achieve. The good news and an update on the PhD is absolutely there appear to be building blocks of transformation. Right now I have about 70. And absolutely there appear to be relationships, similar to, since I use the chemical analogy. Some are precursors, so I'm actually hopefully going to produce some diagnostic tools. So how do you know an industry, well actually let's start, a organization, industry, community are actually close to a tipping point? How do you know this is now worth everything you've got? Or do you need to put a couple more things in place, back off, and then go full hilt? So diagnostic tools. Also, some of them, some of the building blocks seem to serve as accelerants, as catalysts. You seem to be able to add, and all of a sudden, poof, right, magic. So over the next year and a half, because I'm a year and a half in, I will start sharing these with you. And my hope, and this is where part of this is, what can we do together, right? My hope is that you as practitioners try them, see, do they work? Do I call them something different, right? Is there a bit of a nuance? Because the other thing I wanted to come back to is, my PhD may not be like anything you've experienced, because in the US it's impossible to do what I'm doing, which is a practice research. I have no coursework, I have no teaching obligations. It is pure research because I brought 20 years of projects. And that is also where, since most of my projects have been with clients, with actual organizations, with actual problems, not just hypothetical ones, we can do those together still, right? And we can practice together to go, what works, what doesn't, let's pressure test, let's refine. So this is kind of how the dots connect. And so in my question to you of what can we do together, what can you do together with people in this room? For me personally, except for the PhD and a couple of nonprofit boards and some favors that come in, volunteering wise, I'm tapped out. But use me for keynotes, use me for speaking. Put me on boards, recommend me, because on boards we need to stop burning through transformational CEOs that are doing the best that they can with no tools, right? So advocating for that, equipping, supporting, making sure that boards protect the change makers, right? And of course, yes, consulting, teams, boards, leverage me, because if there are ideas that have been an idea 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and you just know it might still be an idea, and you're getting guilty, and maybe you're planning succession and want to make sure that you cement your legacy, well, this is where teams can, and maybe my team can help, cement and drive that forward. So all of those are absolutely opportunities for me, and I'm so incredibly grateful for all of the collaboration to date and things that you've put me in with your teams, with your nonprofits, hoping that it continues to go just, on and on from here.